Welcome to the SeriesPod podcast. I'm V.
And I'm Andrew. Get your favourite beverage ready and join our book club.
Welcome back to our podcast. It's been a whole week. We've missed you so much. Welcome back. We're going to pretend like we haven't recorded 2 episodes in a row. But no, we did miss you a lot. We have left you last time.
Kind of in a cliffhanger, I think.
Yes, I think so too. We left you in a cliffhanger when Roarke was left alone in his office again with his button.
I wanted to go back to that. Sorry, listeners. There is a bit on the page that bugs me. Did he say this to her? He says something like, "Is it any wonder I want you naked and in bed?" Was that a mental thought? Because that came out of the blue. Do you think he actually said that out loud? Or that was a thought?
No, I think that was a thought. I think that was a mental...
Him speaking internally. Yeah, well, I'm glad it wasn't out loud.
Yes, I think it was the inner voice of the demon on his left shoulder.
Yeah, there's definitely a demon living there. Okay, cool. Anyway, chapter 7.
We start this episode with chapter 7, where we visit Charles Monroe. I don't know why we're visiting him again, but I guess you have to... Yeah, I guess you have to dig somewhere.
More digging.
So we visit him again. He is all dressed up to go to work. And I'm doing air quotes when I say work. Eve asks him again where he was on the night when Lola was killed. So I'm guessing that Eve suspects him. Or at least she needs to ask if he was involved or not. And he says that he was at the Grand Theatre once again. He has to give Eve the contact of his client. And he's very unhappy and says that she's gonna ruin his business. Yes. And after that, Eve has a headache. She's exhausted. I think at this point, she's running on fumes. She's been awake for more than 36 hours or something.
She's running on fumes at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was awake for 36 hours, and she's just... It seems like she's at a dead end. She's just checking, old suspects, and not really... There's no one new.
There's no one new, and she doesn't quite know what to do. And she, on the way out from Charles, she stops by Sharon de Blas's apartment, and she decides she couldn't resist checking in once again. The apartment is secured by police and all the windows are sealed to avoid any media flying by, which I found the image quite interesting, that maybe they would just send drones, or because they do have flying cars, right? That
was the thing that I thought about. Yeah, they do have flying cars, yeah. So the way that they said it was someone would fly by, but then they have a concealing spray. Do you remember I think chapter 1 where she sprayed that stuff on her hands and her feet?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's the same kind of thing, but a coloured one, black.
Yeah, I think it's just black paint, black sealant sort of paint, when you tint your windows kind of thing.
Yeah, must be a bitch to clean, but oh well, someone's dead inside, so whatever.
I mean, we still don't know how they clean the sealant that they use on their hands and their shoes.
Questions that need answers.
Yeah, don't get me started. That brings me anxiety. What if it just layers on top?
Ew. Then your hands are never actually clean.
And shoes.
I could get on, shoes I'm fine with, because if it's sealed, then I could spill, anything on my shoes. I would spray all of my clothes.
Yeah, but it also builds, so you do get taller, which is your dream, but...
Thanks for bringing it up.
Sorry.
It's alright, the 2 inches will come somewhere.
Keep dreaming.
Rude. You guys listening to this hate that I'm getting, there's abuse. But yeah, she's back in her apartment. She's having a look around. The bed's being cleaned, but there is still a blood stain on the mattress.
Yes, and she's going through her thing, through Sharon things, her dresser again. Eve knows that things are very organized.
Yeah.
And she points that out a couple of times. And then she moves to the shoes, which were all neatly kept in acrylic boxes. And that's when Eve notices that the shoes are not stacked properly.
Yeah, they weren't stacked the same way that she thought she'd seen them before.
Exactly. She made a mental image of the shoes because she said the woman has only 2 feet, why she needs so many shoes? So that stuck to her. That means the killer was back. Dun dun dun!
He's done something.
Exactly, so he's very good with security.
That's scary. But how did he get through the seal? Oh man, so many questions. But anyway, she does go...
Oh my god, he could be a policeman.
That was my initial thought. I thought, like, you have to have a badge to get past it, right? Unless you're excellent at security. So what if it's a policeman? I still think Roarke is a suspect, though.
Yeah, but he's not a policeman.
No, yeah, exactly. He's new suspect time.
So she then immediately informs the commander, and she goes home, but the silence is wrong.
But you can understand that feeling. Like, if you close your eyes and you know someone's in the same room as you.
Yeah, you can definitely understand it. Definitely. So the silence in her apartment is wrong. This is where we should get some suspense music, I feel like. I think I'm gonna insert the suspense music.
That sounds like a good idea.
Hand on her weapon. Who is here? Is it the killer? No, it's Roarke.
Yeah, he so casually stands up, and the gun is like, she's had a traumatizing week. She has had 36 hours of being awake. She could have just pulled that trigger.
Props to her, she didn't. She has really good self-restraint. She did not pull the trigger.
But she did think about it. She thought, how funny would it be to wipe that smile off his face?
He came and he bought her food. And he came, yeah, that was really cute. I found that cute that he bought her food. And he also has some information on the case. He said, for some reason, seeing her tired eyes compelled him to...
That is the literal sentence.
So my notes are correct.
Yes.
Because
yes.
I thought I misspelled it.
What did you say? Do I want to know what it says? Because I don't think I do, judging by your facial expression.
It says to bed her.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you looking tired makes me want to sleep with you.
Okay, so I misspelled it. Yeah, to feed her. That was a great take.
That was 10 out of 10.
I mean, he does want to bed her.
Oh yeah, he wants to bed her ASAP. Oh, you made me cry.
But that wasn't why he came here.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, let's compose. We stumble upon a package. It's another package from the killer.
Yeah, she thought it was from him. She thought it was a present again.
And he said, no, it was here when I came in. I just picked it up and put it on the table. She says, excuse me for a minute, and goes with the package to her bedroom, I suppose. And Roarke goes into the kitchen and starts to unravel the food that he brought with him. He notes that the apartment had very little clutter.
Yeah.
Had nothing to point to any sort of family background or interest or hobbies. Roarke at this point is even more intrigued, yet which I found very nice, is that he resisted to look anywhere without her there.
That is very sweet. That's very gentlemanly, I think.
Yes, especially considering all the habits that we've seen him do now.
He's very invasive.
It came into a bit of a surprise for me that he would just not look while she wasn't there.
Yeah, and the other bit of that is he literally was in her apartment without her permission. He broke into her apartment, but he won't look through a drawer. What? This man is a walking hypocrite.
A walking hypocrisy.
But he did also note that he felt like she didn't live there. She more existed there. Like, she lived at work.
Yeah, and that's what we've been sort of getting at with her general... What am I trying to say? Vibe, thank you.
Vibe check. Eve, you only exist. So when she leaves the room, she looks completely different. She knew exactly what the package was. It was a tape of Lola being murdered.
She comes back being, well, obviously upset. And Roarke then apologizes for whatever it is that has upset Eve. They talked sort of about the case, and Eve asked how much Roarke knows about security, and yet she also took the food he was fork feeding her with.
She definitely shows childlike traits, you know, every now and again, the way she jerked her head, no, I don't want it, or taking the food off the fork.
Yes, she does. So she needs to be taken care of because she's very bad at it to herself.
She's terrible. How she got this far in life is beyond us.
But at the same time, she's, interrogating a suspect in her own home while letting him feed her.
And then takes it a step further and just lights a cigarette in front of her. And she's like, you're not allowed to smoke. And he's like, well, you didn't arrest me for breaking into your apartment. So you're gonna arrest me for smoking? Honey, yes, arrest him.
I mean, she nearly killed him.
I suppose that's fair. He needs to de-stress.
Yeah, then I have a note of a sentence that they shared together where she says, where she asks, "You want to seduce me?" And he answers, "I will seduce you, unfortunately not tonight."
So that's the whole reason he was there. He was hoping to get some. But I like the confidence. It's not, you would like to, he's like, no, I will. Just time will tell. Although, after the first interrogation, quotes, ended up making out in a gun room, so it's going well for her.
They're weird.
Hell of a love story, one to tell the grandchildren.
Honestly, I think these are the novels such as 50 Shades of Grey are highly influenced by. I think this was the 50 Shades of Grey before the 50 Shades of Grey.
Exactly, yeah, because this is no normal way to meet someone. Like, you don't go to your grandparents, how did you meet? On a murder investigation, and he was the number one suspect. No one does that.
But I do like the dynamic between Eve and Roarke. If we avoid the fact that this is their third date that they've known each other, the dynamic that they have between them, I like it.
It's spot on, yeah. If you ignore the investigation and the murder, it's going well. There's a spark. Yeah, there's definitely some chemistry.
The chemistry flows. So they talk a bit more about Eve's condition, that she's tired and everything. And she breaks down in front of him, recalling the case that she had before this one. We find out that Roarke spent his life disliking the police. He finds her fascinating because of how invested she is in her cases, because before the only police he has met were the ones that I think only work their cases for their own benefit rather than for the benefit of the victim of the crime. So he comforts her in some way after her breakdown. We end this chapter by him about to leave. Eve says, "Next time I'd appreciate you waiting until I'm home before you come in," which is valid. To which he answers, "Well, that's progress. You accept that there will be a next time."
Oh. Yeah, there's definitely a good dynamic there, but I like the playfulness. The playfulness makes it for me.
Yes, it's playful, it's witty, it's very quick on its feet, so they don't really waffle on.
And I think that's something that he admires about her anyway, is she's witty.
Definitely. So the dialogue in between the two is so lovely. I enjoyed reading it very much. And that's how chapter 7...
It was a good chapter. It was a bit brief, kind of just gave them... It was more about them than anything.
Yes, it was a nice little sachet of just Roarke and Eve.
Yeah, it was good.
We begin chapter 8 by a conversation between Finney and Eve. Finney tells her that the discs that they collected from Sharon de Blas's apartment were made on a Trident microcam, which is very expensive. It's a 5,000 model and it's very new. Very pricey. It's been available for only 6 months. He also, he asks, sort of teases a rhetorical question saying, "Guess who owns Trident?" And ta-da, it's Roarke Industries.
Who else? The man owns everything. I think what Mavis previously said, he owns 23% of the world or something.
Pretty much most things and companies and buildings.
Yeah. I feel like he owns a lot of things in the city as well where they are, because it always seems like he owns an apartment block, then he owns a business, and I think
his base financial business is very New York City, so most of New York is probably owned by him. I want to point out that Finney is nibbling on cashews, which will... It's a continued theme. Finney always has snacks in his pocket.
That's me. In everything that we did, I always have snacks.
I keep almonds in my pockets.
It's you too. Oh, actually, to be fair, in class, we were always snacking and eating.
Always.
You've got to. It's boring doing nothing.
Yeah, especially if it's a 9 a.m. lecture that you really don't care about.
I was never there at 9 a.m.
Yeah, you were never there. I was always there because I have this inner...
anxiety if you didn't turn up on time.
Yeah, oh my god. For the whole 3 years, I've missed only maybe 4 classes if we cancel out the time I got pneumonia.
What? Oh god, no. I don't know if I missed classes. I just turned, like, any 9 a.m. lectures, I wasn't going to get there at 9 a.m. I was going to get there at 9:30. Like, you're lucky I'm turning up at all.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's true, we always had some sort of snacks.
So I relate to Feeny.
Yeah. Hey there, this is Editing V. I just wanted to pop in quickly and say that Andrew and I go on reminiscing about snacks and our ridiculous university time. If you want to check it out, it will be available as an outtake on our Patreon at patreon.com/SeriesPod. A big thanks to everyone who supports us there. Now back to the episode.
So back to Feeny.
Back to Feeny. Yeah, he likes snacks. We like it's all. I feel Feeny. Snacks in your pockets? Way to go. So they move into more investigation. So Eve starts thinking more about it. And she mentions that the killer just walked right in. So it's a shitty neighborhood, but an upscale building. And no one noticed him either time. So he'd been there twice. And no one really... It wasn't unusual that he was there. So it's either he blends really well or they're used to seeing.
Yeah. So what do you think? Like maybe a janitor, or?
No, I don't think it's a janitor. I think perhaps. Well, they imply that it might be one of Sharon's regulars. So he has built up.
Rapport, so that he can just come in as he pleases. What if he wasn't a regular? What if he was another tenant? Like, what if he lived in the same building?
Yeah. So he might have been Sharon's regular, and they've been... That also could be the same thing, which then, more suspicion falls onto Charles, perhaps, because, they've been neighbors, they've been intimate, but so far I think Charles's alibis check out.
Yeah, I think Charles' alibi did have he had a tight alibi, I think, or a sound one anyway. That's what makes me think it's a cop.
Well, perhaps. So then Eve poses a rhetorical question, more of. She's thinking out loud, let's say. She poses a rhetorical question that a regular client to a expensive, sophisticated prostitute chooses for his next victim to be a low-scale, very green Lola star.
But I think that's why I think that age is a thing. I mean, they both liked expensive things, but then the killer said, like, this isn't a thing for a girl to be doing, or a little girl to be doing.
But Sharon isn't, 18, 19. She's a well-established...
No, I know, that's what... It's weird. What if it's not one person? What if there's multiple? What if there's, 2 people?
That could be it. But when we were reading about Lola Star, there was one killer.
Never mind, that theory is debunked now. Was thinking out loud there, but yes.
So, still many questions unanswered.
Indeed.
We go into the commander's office, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Where we see Rockman.
For those who haven't caught on, Rockman is Senator de Blas's, lapdog.
Yes. Rockman works for Senator de Blas. He's his lapdog, does whatever the senator needs. So... Senator de Blas is having a meeting with the commander. Rockman is also there. They're having a meeting about Sharon's case. And then the senator grills Eve about the case. And she does her best not to give any information away. And all around, it's a very unpleasant conversation. The senator is still being a jerk. Rockman is trying to cover it up. The commander can't do anything because it's the senator, but he cares for Eve. Eve knows all of these politics, and she's a smart woman, so she tries to give just enough to the senator that he would eventually leave them alone so she can get on with the case, and yet not give any information away because it's a Code 5 case. After the meeting, they leave. Eve and Feeny leave the senator's office and notice that the lapdog Rockman is trying to tail them.
Yeah, it's suspicious.
Very suspicious. Are you kidding me? Eve then suggests to Feeny that they split up and for Feeny to see where the tail follows him. And through that, they split up and Eve whizzes through crowds to escape. And she goes to visit Sharon's parents, Elizabeth Barrister and Richard de Blas. At this point, she's on the tube. She exits the tube and it's now snowing. As she approaches Sharon's parents' house, she mentions that if Roarke's home simply whispered money, this one screamed old money. So the carpets were very thick, the walls were papered with silk.
The chairs were upholstered in ivory, which nowadays I'm pretty sure ivory is illegal, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they come from money, like old money, and she like Elizabeth de Blas is alone, so her husband is not there, and she sits down with Eve to have a conversation, and she basically gives her an update on what's going on with the case, and she asks her a few more questions.
Yes, Eve came to talk to Sharon's parents to maybe see more information or any sort of clues. Elizabeth, as you said, is alone. Her husband is in a meeting. Eve points out that there is nervousness in the deliberate movements and the sort of rigid stance that Elizabeth has.
I mean, her daughter was just killed.
Yeah.
Do you know, or do you think it's more nervousness of something else?
No, I think there's nervousness because they're talking about the case. So I think
right,
she is anxious to hear what Eve has to say. And Eve does point out that her eyes are shadowed with grief. So I don't think there's anything suspicious going on here. Yeah. Eve asks Elizabeth how much of the case she has read. And Elizabeth says that all of it. And we find out that Elizabeth is an attorney. So she understands the documents that are being presented to her. And she says that she has every confidence that Eve will find who killed her daughter. And that she has...
And she said that in a court of law, it'll be like she would have built up a well-defined case, like with strong evidence and everything. She goes on to ask about the senator. Like, did the parents share the same views as the grandfather, like in terms of the prostitution and everything?
Elizabeth is very politically correct on that stand, but she does mention that Sharon had a bad relationship with basically the whole family and her as well, and hasn't been telling anything about her life. Yeah, she doesn't share her life.
But then when she spoke about the senator, Elizabeth seemed to not like the senator very much. She didn't say she didn't like him, but Eve sensed some tension between the two.
Absolutely, and I think that's the running theme, that no one likes the senator.
Yeah, he's a dick.
Yeah, lightly put. Eve also, what I found interesting is that Eve asks Elizabeth if Sharon has any other siblings, and Elizabeth answered that her and her husband were proponents of the population adjustment theory. So at some point, one child only.
One child only, boys and girls.
Somewhere in between now and 2058, people were like, okay, we need a population control. Let's not have 17 kids.
And she admitted she wanted 5 kids, but her husband was very firm and said, no, you get 1.
Yeah, so I think also where the nervousness from Elizabeth comes is that it is very clear that her husband is the head of the family. I don't think there's anything...
She wouldn't say anything that could incriminate him or anything, but she doesn't want to speak without.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything abusive. He seems like...
Controlling.
Yeah, but there is that part where the control comes through in Elizabeth. They talk a bit more, and Elizabeth mentions that her daughter kept a diary. So there's a diary that we haven't found yet that could potentially lead us to the killer. It's like the...
But it's not any old diary. It's not like, dear diary, I ate a muffin today. Elizabeth said that her daughter would refer to the diary again and joke about the secrets she had, and all the people who knew about it would be disgusted that she'd written it down. So she basically had like a blackmail diary. Maybe not blackmail, but you never know. Extra income.
Well, maybe a blackmail one, because she was quite power hungry in her own way. She really liked the sense of power, so perhaps...
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past her.
So perhaps the killer killed her because there was something in her diary about him or her.
It would explain the lack of the diary being at the evidence.
Yeah, and him coming back for it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But then we still don't know why he would kill Lola Star. Or maybe there was something about Lola Star and him in that diary.
Maybe it is just random. Maybe, he wanted to kill the Blast, but he needed to kind of make it seem like it wasn't to do with the secrets. So he's just named 6 or 5 other people. Just like, fuck it, let me just kill these people.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Elizabeth also points out that she's not sure that Roarke would let himself risk falling in love. So now we get sort of the insight of who Roarke is, that he's a very cautious man and that he guards himself.
He doesn't open himself up, yeah. But then the whole thing with Eve, like now that we've seen their relationship kind of grow, he's obviously, like, he's letting himself go around her.
Yeah, which also gives us an insight that he might be very interested in her.
Yeah, beyond bedding her, which he brings up constantly. That is where we find out that, Rourke did it as a favour to the family. But then Eve kind of springs on them like, would it surprise you to know that Rourke is a suspect? And I think that is like where the husband enters and he gets caught up on the case.
Yeah, so he finds out that Elizabeth asked Rourke, he asks his wife, why would you bring him into this? And this is where we see truly how heartbroken Elizabeth is about not being able to connect with her daughter. And we also find out that Rourke called them beforehand, telling that Eve will most probably pop in. He also told Elizabeth that he had very good trust in Eve, that she will be able to solve this case.
Yeah, and I think after she saw the evidence and like the case that Eve had built, she kind of sees that too now.
Yes, absolutely. And there's also a very fun moment. Well, it's not quite fun, but I found it intriguing perhaps, was that after Eve also said that Rourke is the main suspect, both Elizabeth and her husband said that Rourke is capable of murder, but he's incapable of a senseless act.
Yeah, and he wouldn't do it to someone who was defenseless. So I think that's why I was curious. You remember when I brought up someone pointing a gun at his head and what happened? I wondered maybe if he did kill him. Because it didn't say he did or he didn't. It said that he incapacitated him, but not how it ended.
Yeah, I have no doubt that Rourke is capable of killing someone. I think he probably did kill, quite a few people to get to the place that he is now. Sort of like a Guy Ritchie movie.
Yeah, you can't get to the top without committing a few crimes.
I don't quite understand why they put a senseless act. So obviously they think it's a senseless act because their daughter, but we did explore the possibility that there was blackmail involved. So then it turns into not a senseless act. But I still don't think it's Rourke. I think someone is trying to frame Rourke really, really well.
That could definitely be possible, yeah. But maybe like the parents didn't put it together. Like she kept a diary of secrets. Maybe they just thought she kept the diary. Whereas me and you know, if someone's keeping a diary and they're powerful, they're going to use it.
Yeah, especially when I know you, who keeps all the receipts. And all the screenshots.
Hell yeah. I'll bring it up 2 years later.
Yeah. In a court of law. And that's how chapter 8 ends. And the last chapter for this episode is chapter 9. It's all about testing. So it's all about... Most of it is about the previous case. And chapter 9 starts with Finney calling Eve to tell her about Rockman tailing him. And he says that the tail got quite extensive because Finney even got on the plane and Rockman went with him but was in first class, and he only stopped tailing him when they got out of the plane and he realized that Eve wasn't there. So then Rockman calls probably the senator to tell him, and then the senator calls the chief of the police, so pulls the strings. And we know that because after they hung up, the commander calls Eve, Moody, and he tells Eve to get into testing no matter what, to postpone all of the things that she needs to do and get to testing.
Which doesn't put a good light on the chief. He's doing the senator's... Like, what does the guy have on it?
So senator is really pulling some strings, and not the best strings.
So we go into testing, and we meet the lovely doctor.
Before the lovely doctor, we'll go into testing. I have many little quirks about the testing. So you go into testing and you have to get completely naked while people behind the window are watching you. This is 2058, where the technology is baffling. The technology is running the whole world. Why do you have to get naked still?
Yeah, this is humiliating.
Yeah, so they're watching you, they're scanning your body, they're watching you through the window. It's all a very awkward
Why do you have to get naked in front of people?
procedure, I guess. Afterwards, that's where she's able to put on a jumpsuit so they can test her eyes and ears.
Yeah, no wonder she didn't want to do it. Now, most people, you would read on a wall and listen to sounds. But then her test, she had to go through scenarios, which I thought was very weird.
She also gets a brain scan because God forbid.
Hey, you gotta check it's healthy.
You
Gotta
would-
check it's still there.
Well, she said.
I mean, she did, make out with the number one suspect at one point, so brain could not be.
Yeah, so I would, a brain scan is a good idea. Then we get to the craziest part, which is VR. That's where they test, that's what the testing is. So they reconstruct the scene of your termination by the report that you submitted. And they get everything there. So it's not just a movie, it's also the smells, the sound, the feels. It's a full body experience. And she goes through it again.
Yeah, it's like being put back into it.
Yes, and I'm not sure how that's a testing, but I guess they monitor your response, like the blood pressure and everything, and they while doing brain scans and whatever other medical things that they do. But it is traumatizing. So she had to go through all of that again. And after all of that, that's when we meet Dr. Mira. Or Myra. Myra? Maybe Myra.
I say both, again, interchangeable with me. But we could call her Dr. Myra.
So Eve points out that she doesn't have anything against Dr. Myra. She describes her as a woman dedicated to her calling, which is, so Dr. Myra is a psychiatrist, and she's a really good psychiatrist.
But not just anyone, she's very good. And Eve even said, if she was in private practice, she could earn 3 times more than what she does now.
We have a description of Dr. Myra, which is not often that we actually get a full-on description of a person. So she seems like a very neat, tidy woman. She has warm, honey brown hair that is scooped back very neatly in a complicated twist. She wears tidy toned suits. And yeah, as Eve mentioned, she has nothing against her. Lovely woman. And they have a conversation.
The thing I got from this conversation that they had is she's very... I know she has to be aware because she's a psychiatrist, but she seemed very much invested in Eve, not just from a professional point. She seemed... It was almost like talking to a friend, Not a friend, but someone that was caring for her.
I think Dr. Myra does care for Eve, because as we find out, they've known each other for a very long time, and we later find out that Dr. Myra relates to Eve on quite a few levels. So they sit down, Dr. Myra makes some tea, because that's what they drink in her office. No coffee, no, just tea, some calming tea.
Boring. Boo.
Give us the caffeine. And she says that it is unfortunate that the testing was postponed, that the best results would be what they would get within the 24 hours of the incident. She also says that the pre-results are satisfactory, that it's all fine. Eve at this point is very uncomfortable, so she doesn't have anything against Dr. Myra herself, but she has everything against being tested, evaluated, anything to do with any psychiatric help. She's very, please don't touch me.
Yeah, and not just in this, you could see it with Roarke. She was very much I can deal with myself. That was it. But she refused something called auto-hypnosis. So was that meant to, open her up more, or, what is auto-hypnosis?
Auto-hypnosis is when a psychiatrist hypnotizes you and then helps you deal with whatever it is you're struggling with.
Ah, right, okay. I did not know that.
Yes, and that's optional, and
Naturally, she said no.
yeah. Dr. Myra points out that she seems a bit tired and exhausting. That Eve then also defensively mentions that she's on another case and it's a very demanding one. And then we get introduced to sleep inducers. So it's like a sleeping pill. Yeah, that definitely works. It knocks you out. Don't think it has any weird side effects, so you wake up fine.
Yeah, a sleeping pill that definitely works. Yeah, you don't wake up groggy, or if anyone builds one of these or makes these, please send them through.
And also Eve says that they've had this conversation before and that the pills are optional and she opts to not have them. And then we find out it's because Eve doesn't like losing control, so she finds that sleep inducers limit her control. And she also says she doesn't like brain rape. To which Dr. Meyer says, you consider testing a kind of rape? And then Eve brilliantly answers, well, it's not a choice, is it? Which I found that so brilliant. Well, it's not a choice, is it?
So relatable, yeah.
And then they go into more about the case, that the testing is there to help, the guide through traumatic experience, and so on, so on. And then we find out a bit more about Eve's background. That she was abused physically and sexually and emotionally and abandoned when she was 8 years old. So she had a very difficult, abusive childhood.
Yeah, she had a hard time. And then between the age of 8 and 10, she lived in a communal home. They couldn't find her parents. And she basically has no memory for the first 8 years of her life.
Yes, which is why she's called Eve Dallas, which I found quite interesting, because she's called Eve for the first woman, Adam and Eve, and Dallas because she was found wandering the streets of Dallas.
What a name. Can you imagine? That bugged the hell out of me.
And then they talk about off record. So Eve doesn't remember anything. And Dr. Myra suggests methods. So they have methods to recreate the memories that she's missing. And that Eve opts not to do that. So she doesn't want to remember. And Dr. Meyer says that very often the mind protects itself and refuses to acknowledge those traumatic experiences.
If she doesn't want to remember, she doesn't want to remember. Just let it be. I like Dr. Meyer, but invasive, as Eve said. Brain rape.
Brain rape. No consent. But I think it's because Dr. Myra wants her to deal with it. So perhaps it is an undealt issue that maybe came out before and we don't know in what scenarios.
Yeah, maybe it's affecting more than just like we realise at the moment. Maybe it is a bigger thing.
Because we're still new to Eve and the whole situation. So perhaps they've had moments where that was needed and Eve was like, no thank you. I also like the dynamic between Eve and Myra, because Eve goes to Dr. Myra for help with a psychological portrait of killers or victims, and Dr. Myra is happy to help, doing it both off record and on record.
But she also only does it as long as she can help Eve at the same time. Like, I'll help you if you do good by yourself.
She really cares about Eve. So Eve introduces a hypothetical case because it's a code 5, and she describes Sharon de Blas, and Dr. Myra sort of recreates what she would diagnose. So she describes Sharon in that she chose to make her living from sex while coming from a very, very well-positioned family, and she flaunts that in front of her family. Why? Dr. Myra proposed a suggestion that she could find her self-worth only in sexual skills. She also either enjoyed it or detested it, sort of overarching as to why was to punish. Maybe herself, but mostly to punish close to her, which is where we come to the diary again. That is for blackmail. So what me and you, figured out and our readers figured out maybe 10-15 minutes ago, Eve just got now. So that's one gold star for us, guys.
We are the detectives here. Eve, she's the assistant.
So then they also give a psychological portrait to the killer, that he is a planner, confident, perhaps smug, and that he enjoys what he does and he will enjoy it again. And we do have that it's barely a week apart, 2 murders. And then Dr. Meyer says something to Eve that I think is very useful to Eve. She says, even strong self-made women have weak spots. Don't be afraid of them.
Yeah.
And I think those weak spots that she talks about will be open with Roarke. Because he really takes those weak spots and just brings them out of Eve. Booms.
Yeah. But she does need to deal with them, to be fair.
Or at least embrace them.
Yeah, embrace your weaknesses and just, they are who you are. But Eve just kind of shoves them aside like, I am strong, and that is it. That's all she sees herself as, is strong. Doesn't see herself as beautiful, doesn't see anything else, just strong.
She's just her job, really.
Yeah, pretty much. She's a police officer and nothing more.
Eve goes back to her office and everyone in Cop Central knows where she's been. So they are trying to avoid her like plague. They know what she's been through and they do their best to stay out of her way.
Yeah, because testing, as we've heard, it's an unpleasant experience, to say the least.
Yeah, it's not fun. Most people at Comp Central know what it's like to be tested and they want nothing to do with that. So they leave her alone and she works for about an hour in just solitude. So it's the end of the day, and to heal the wounds of the day, she decided to visit Mavis, and Mavis sings at this place called...
Is that how you could have described this place?
It's called a Blue Squirrel. Now, the way the author describes it is a joint which put in one slippery step up from a dive.
Oh, we've all been there.
It's like, I don't think I've even been at that kind of place.
Oh no, I've definitely been in some dives. I mean, I've been in there and then decided to try and leave as soon as possible. I once went to a bar that was no bigger than my bedroom, and half of it was the actual, like, the bar where you buy the counter, but it was behind bulletproof glass and bars on the, like, windows. Yeah, that was a fucking dive. That was scary.
That doesn't sound fun.
My cousin took me there. He was like, I know this great bar. I'm like, all right, show me. And I turn up there. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna die. So I assume this is a little better than that. One step up. No bulletproof glass.
It does say put one slippery step from the dive. So I think you've been at the dive and this is one slippery step from it. So she is in a mood to just drown herself in cheap liquor and mediocre music. So she comes in, sits her at her usual spot, and Mavis is singing at the bar, and her singing is described as an appealing screech. So I still can't figure out. So is Mavis a good singer or not?
How a screech can be appealing? I think she's beautiful. I don't think she's a good singer. When someone says screeching, it's not the first thing. No, there's no appealing screeching.
It will be an ongoing thing with Mavis and her singing. So this is not the last time. And we will get more into it. But for now, I'm just going to put a question out there. I don't understand if Mavis is a good singer or a bad singer, or she's a bad singer and Eve just loves Mavis so much that she's like, okay, good on you.
It's okay. You're doing good, yeah. Something else I noticed in the same kind of like area of this chapter is they mentioned drugs, and they tried a war on them a long time ago, trying to like stopping them being illegal, and they just kind of ended up legalizing it and regulating them, but still nothing even worked.
They failed with the drugs. So she orders a drink, I think. Oh, it had a funny name.
A screamer? Ew. Which is a slim glass filled with frothy blue liquid. That sounds delicious.
Ah, yes. So she orders a screamer, which is a very strong, very bad alcohol. Oh, yes. And she's enjoying Mavis's performance. Mavis, mind you, is wearing paint. So she's not wearing clothes. She just has body paint on her.
That doesn't seem too far out there for Mavis, though. Like, Mavis seems like she's a wild card permanently.
Yeah. So she finishes her song, and she goes to sit, and she says, a screamer, wouldn't you rather find a hammer and I just knock you unconscious? So now you understand how bad the screamer is.
This must be like drinking petrol. Quite literally.
Probably, yeah, or antifreeze.
Oh.
Because it's blue. And then they talk for a bit. She goes back singing, and then Eve closes her eyes and hears a voice. We hear Roarke's voice. He's there. Eve opens her eyes and stares at him. And just like, every time I turn around, I see you. Why are you here?
You are always following me. She loves it really, though. She loves it. But then she carries on with the cheekiness and she's like, I wanted an appointment, not a drinking buddy. This man is turning up to everything like it's a date. He does not care that there's a murder investigation. He gives no shits. And
then I love how he sniffs the drink and she's like, well, you're not gonna get a drinking buddy with that poison. Oh, and then he says, then he looks at Mavis and says sort of that unless she's having some sort of seizure, I think the vocalist is signaling you. And Mavis is is being Mavis, grinning at her, pointing thumbs up like a maniac. You know, like one of those soccer mums that are just at your competition going, yay, you go.
Oh my god. You do it! And Roarke is probably just saying this like, what the fuck is this woman doing? Okay. So they didn't know each other. Mavis knows of Roarke. Roarke doesn't know of Mavis until now, where he thinks she's having a seizure.
Yes. Wonderful, isn't it?
Mm.
And then he continues to wanting to comfort Eve because he points out that she has something sad in her eyes and that it gets to him, and he actually says that out loud to him. And at this point, Eve is so over even Roarke. She's like, okay, I'm going home.
And she's fed up, like she's at the end. And
yeah, she had a very hard day. I mean, she just wants to be left alone for a little bit. And he's not having any of this. So much so that she says, I'm going home, and she didn't get far before he shoved her against the wall and crushed his mouth on her.
Every day is a date. Doesn't matter how she feels. It's a date. You're angry? It's a date.
Yes. So she's conflicted. She was both enjoying it and at the same time she was angry at him. He drives her home. He loses his cool again because he's that frustrated that she's not letting him help her. Which I also think is quite refreshing to Roarke to realize that women are not going to be falling over him. And I also think that's why he enjoys her company.
Yeah, it's definitely like a game of cat and mouse to him. Like, he wants to, whether it's because he wants to date her or take care of her, you know, she's just refusing anything from him. She's like, no.
It's very much always a fight with her on those subjects.
Yeah.
We finish our chapter with her asking about the senator.
He doesn't like him. And he even said that he would rather put money into the devil himself than have the senator run. So he has a clear dislike for the senator.
Clear.
But then you're right. Maybe, like, is the senator going to set him up? Is that what's going on? Is Rockman doing the senator's work and trying to get Roarke out the picture? Never know. But then we finish on a fun little quote, what I mean again by, you know, Rourke's confidence, ever so much at the forefront of everything he does. He was driving into his place and she says, I'm not going inside with you. And he said, if I were bringing you here for sex, we'd have sex. We both know it. This man, everyday confident. It's like, yeah, if I want to sleep with you, you will sleep with me. Which is a bit creepy as well. A little bit, you know, consensual. We need to discuss that, mate.
And that concludes our episode for today.
It does indeed. It was a good episode.
But it was a lovely episode.
And thank you all for listening in. If you have any suggestions for us or anything else, please do let us know.
Yes, definitely. Hope you enjoyed it. This episode is available at SeriesPod on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast. And for those who go against the mainstream audio platforms, we're also available on Podcast Addict and our website, link to which you can find on our Instagram. Or if you're watching and listening to us on YouTube, you can find it in the description below. Speaking of Instagram, for updates and fun content, you can follow us there. And if you have a personal favorite audio platform and we're not on it, do tell us and I will do my best to get our podcast there. You can also tell us if you have any book series in mind that you want us to cover. And before we go, a very special thank you to our patrons for supporting us. If you want to support us too, you can go to patreon.com/seriespod, and in return we post the podcasts there early, as well as include some fun outtakes.
Happy listening. I don't know.
Bye!
Bye.